Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head to Norway once again, and we're going to try yet another of the beers that I brought back with me from my recent trip up to Oslo. This time though we are heading to one of the northernmost breweries in Norway, and it's one of the more established breweries, I guess you could say, as well. So we're going to go to Tromsø, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I do apologise if I'm not, and we're having a taste of my first beer from the Mack Ølbryggeri, but this is one of the ones from the Mack Brewery, which is their sort of little craft division, if you like, or their little mini craft brewery that they have. This one is called the Sex, and it is a 6.9% New England style IPA. This one is hopped with Simcoe from America, of course, and Rackau, which is a lovely New Zealand hop. I've not had some Rackau hops in quite a while, so I'm very curious to see how this hop combination turns out. Rackau, of course, I first encountered when I was in New Zealand over when was that? That was 2015, and this, you know, the Simcoe hop has been dropped a little bit in recent times in favour of the Galaxy from Australia. Simcoe, of course, very well known for its passion fruity notes, but Galaxy seems to be becoming more popular because it has that passion fruit punch to it, but it also has a little bit of pineapple and other complexities too. The Rackau hop is a really interesting one. It's apricots, mangoes, and it can give you some other kind of fruity complexities as well. So very curious to see how this one turns out, and as always I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. I've been very impressed with the Norwegian beers that I've reviewed so far from you that I brought back on this little trip. But anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Mack Ølbryggeri. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers, of course. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Norwegian beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about the Mack Brewery then. So the Mack Brewery was founded back in 1877 in Tromsø by Ludwig Marcus Mack, who was the son of a German immigrant that was also a local businessman and later a politician as well. So Ludwig had been educated as a baker like his father, but he'd been to Germany many a time to visit a brewmaster uncle in Bavaria, and this persuaded him to pursue a career as a brewer, and the brewery was formed with the idea of actually being a German-style brewery in the north of Norway. So in 1915, Lauritz Bredrup took over as the CEO of the brewery, and then he rebuilt and modernised the brewery between 1920 and 1922, which quadrupled the original capacity. But they opened the famous Ølhallen in Tromsø in 1928, which became very, very popular. From what I understand, it is still open today and you can go and visit it, but over the coming years a culture of sales districts, if you like, apparently developed throughout Norway between the different breweries. The one that they had for Mack Ølbryggeri was actually Tromsø and also West Finnmark as well. But Reinhold Bredrup became the CEO in 1953, and the company also began to produce Coca-Cola in the 1960s, and they also further expanded the brewery as well. Ludwig Mack Bredrup became the managing director in 1981, and Håkan Bredrup became the CEO in 1985, and the Mack Polar Beer also became the first beer at the North Pole in 1981, and then the first beer at the South Pole in 1990 as well. In 1999, Harald Bredrup took over at the helm, and in 2000 they added a microbrewery in their old premises as well to experiment with the different styles of beer coming over from America, and the different styles associated with craft beer, I guess you could say, as well. And this little microbrewery that they've opened up has produced around 80 different varieties of beer so far, if you flick through the website and have a look at the Untappd and things like that. But today the brewery is largely owned by the descendants of the original Ludwig Mack, and the company actually held the title of the world's northernmost brewery until 2012, when they moved production to Nordicsbotten, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, in Balsfjord, which is a little bit further south than Tromsø. I believe the northernmost brewery now is in Longyearbyen, which is up on Svalbard. For a while it was one of the breweries in Greenland, I think Nuuk, but when they moved to this new facility it was only something crazy like 50 metres further south compared to the brewery in Greenland, so that meant they weren't the northernmost brewery in the world anymore. But then, you know, when it's Longyearbyen, they're not getting anywhere near that, I don't think. The northernmost brewery now is the one up in Longyearbyen on Svalbard as well. So yeah, really cool to try this brewery. I didn't realise there was still some of the very, very old breweries still active in Norway. Of course, you know, when you think about the level of strictness in the alcohol sales and things like that in places like Norway, Finland, Sweden, you know, it is cool to see that there are breweries like this that are very old established breweries, if you like, but still producing the different craft beers as well. So yeah, a really kind of interesting and I guess quite unique company in Norway, and I'm really curious to see what this particular beer has in store. So if you want to learn a little bit more, you can check out the brewery website in the description below. You can follow them on Facebook and things like that, and Instagram, and that will keep you up to date with all the latest goings on at the brewery. But definitely cool to find such an established brewery, if you like, in somewhere as remote as Tromsø. So yeah, let's get on to the tasting of this beer then. We can get rid of the brewery notes. As I mentioned to you at the start of the video, this one is a 6.9% New England style IPA, hopped with Simcoe and Rakow. Simcoe from America, Rakow from New Zealand. So yeah, I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork of this one before we open it up. There you can see nice kind of graffiti wall with neon lights on this one. Quite an unusual style of artwork. It was this one. This one just caught my eye because it was a New England IPA and it was a half litre, so I thought, you know, why not? And there you can see the Mack Brewery symbol on the top of this one too. So yeah, without further ado then, I guess, let's get this guy out and we will get on with the tasting. Very curious to see how this one turns out. Oh, look at that actually. You can see the dust and things on the top of that. That's quite unusual. A little bit of yeast sediment and things stuck to the top of the beer, but I'm sure it won't affect the beer all that much. So yeah, as you can see with this one then, you can just have a little look at that. Look at all that kind of dust and stuff, yeast sediment on the bottle, and if you look just in the very top of it, I've not had this beer upside down or anything, just look at that. All of that yeasty sediment, and if you look at the bottom of the cap as well, this is very unusual. I've never had a beer do this as well, but as I say, we'll taste it and just see how we go. And I've never had a beer that's had that. Oh, that's definitely the yeast. I've never had a beer that's had that in all of my days doing the YouTube channel, but yeah, we'll just see how we get on with this one then. But as you can see with this beer, if I hold it up to the light, it's poured a nice, it's actually a more dark or kind of darker murky orange colour, this one. There's a half finger of a frothy, I would say more cream coloured head, this one, rather than anything else, but that's fading away to be a very thin foamy layer quite quickly. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass and a few little ones just heading up towards the bottom of that head there. But you know, overall it does look very, very nice, and nothing particularly surprising about this one when you consider it is a New England IPA. If I put my fingers behind the glass, you can see it is pretty damn hazy, I have to say. So so yeah, let's have a look at the aroma and see how we get on then. So yeah, it's quite interesting that you can pick up a little bit of the passion fruit from the Simcoe right away. The Rakow hop is giving it some kind of interesting notes though. The Rakow can be very, very interesting. It can give you like mangoes, it can also give you a little bit of an almost red fruitish quality to it as well, and you can definitely pick that up a little bit. This beer definitely has an element of kind of peary quality to it as well. That can also come from the Rakow hop. There's a little touch of apricot in there as well. So yeah, it's got some of that darker passion fruity quality in the background, but it's also got a sort of plummy strawberry kind of thing. It's really unusual actually. It's almost it smells like fruit pastels actually. Don't know how good a descriptor that is for Norwegians, right enough, but the aroma in this beer almost reminds me as if you smell the inside of a packet of fruit pastels back home in Scotland. It smells like fruity kind of candied sweets. But yeah, there is passion fruit in there. There's a bit of apricot, which is something that you would expect from the Rakow. There's a red fruity note. It's almost plummy or raisiny or strawberry or something like that. I do remember that you can get a little bit of red fruit from the Rakow hop, but this, this level of it is quite unusual. But there's also a kind of peary, appley, orchardy type ester to this beer as well. So the fruity notes in this are very, very unusual, I have to say. Yeah. It almost smells actually a little bit like apple and blackcurrant juice. You know, when you get these diluted concentrate juices that you pour in and add the water to, it really reminds me of that, the aroma. It's like apple and blackcurrant juice. So yeah, in terms of the green side of the hops, there's a little bit of grassiness to this one, but not much to it otherwise. You can pick up a little bit of a biscuity note to this one, a little bit of an almost McVitie's digestive quality to the beer. I like, yeah, this is definitely an unusual New England IPA in terms of its aroma. I don't really know what to make of that aroma so far, which is it's one that's really kind of caught me off guard. Very red fruity, and lots of other kind of interesting things going on here. Biscuity, a little bit of a white kind of bready note to this one as well. But yeah, just as I always say, take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck in. But this one to me is one of the strangest New England IPA aromas that I've come across, and it's definitely a lot darker than a number of the New England IPAs that I've reviewed for you recently. So let's just have a taste of this and see what we got. And this one is the Sex, a New England IPA at 6.9% for the Mack Ølbryggeri from Tromsø, in at the very north of Norway. Then let's get stuck into this one. Slàinte, skål. Yeah. Now, this one, I don't know what to make of this. This isn't like any beer I've reviewed before, as far as I can think. At least, it is a New England IPA. If we think about it within that sort of boundary, if you like, we shouldn't be so strict when it comes to beers. This is definitely one of the more unusual beers that I've had within this category. It actually tastes fairly nice, but it's just so different from the New England IPAs that I've had before. It's more bready than it is wheaty and oaty and things like that. It's more like it's almost like it has a kind of brown bread base to it. Now, normally with New England IPAs you expect that wheaty smoothness to it, then some of the oaty creaminess. Sometimes you get dextrose, dextrin, lactose, these kind of things a little bit, although the lactose puts it more into the milkshake IPA category. But with this one, it's almost like a brown bready base leaning towards a bit of a milkshake IPA. This is really unusual, actually. Yeah, I will say I actually quite like the flavour of this beer, but it's not what I expected when I bought the bottle. It really isn't. And I will say they've pulled off an interesting beer here. Whether it was quite intentional or not, I really don't know. It really is just quite strange. But it's not strange in a bad way, if that makes sense. So let's just try and break the flavour of this down a little bit then. So in the middle of your palate you have a nice sort of brown bready quality that just blankets the middle of your palate. You can feel, I really don't get much in the way of oatiness out of this one. In the middle of your palate there's a nice biscuity sweetness. It reminds me of McVitie's digestives. In the very centre of your palate there's a little touch of a kind of caramelly note, which again is quite unusual for these New England IPAs. Yeah, I mean, for me with this one, it's the way that the flavours go together actually works pretty well, but it's just not a New England IPA. I don't know what this beer is. It certainly works in terms of the flavour combinations, but it's just not at all what you would expect of this style. So yeah, as I say, with this one in particular, let me know your own thoughts on this in the comments section below. I'm really not sure exactly what to make of this, but as I say, the malt base is more kind of brown bready and biscuity and caramelly. Could it be a little bit more... It's not even like an English malt base, it is more of an American malt base, but definitely a little bit more It has a little bit of a yeasty quality to it, this one as well. This is really just kind of quite strange actually, but as I say, I think the flavour combination does work, but most definitely not a New England IPA in the traditional sense, at least. On the hoppy side of things, back corners of the palate then, you've got a little teeny bit of earthiness there, but as you come kind of forward on the sides of the tongue, that smooths out a little bit. You get towards the very front corners of your palate, there's a little touch of a floral aromaticity to this beer, but then it mainly starts pushing towards the grassy side of things. Then round the very front curve of the palate, you've got that nice lighter grassiness that you get from a lot of beers. Behind the front curve of the palate, that's where the fruity notes start to come out of this beer. For me, there's a little teeny bit of passion fruit from the Simcoe, but it's the Rakow, I think, that is kind of stealing the show. The Rakow is one of these hops that can be very, very diverse when you use it in the brew, and it can give you a hell of a lot of different things. You can get red fruits, you can get apricots, like I was saying, you can get a little bit of a more mangoey tropical note out of it as well, with it, and some and other things. But to me, this one is a really red, fruity New England IPA. The weird thing about this is, if someone gave me this beer blind, and they asked me, what style of beer is this? I wouldn't know what to tell them. I really wouldn't. If they asked me what hops were in it, I'd be more inclined to say Enigma. Enigma is one of these ones that has almost this red berry cranberry sort of flavour to it, but it's also got a bit of a kind of green grapey note. This beer almost has that, except it's a little bit more the fruity side of things. As I always say, you get this little oily bubble behind the front curve of your palate, and that's where the fruity esters start to come out of the beer. As I say, the passion fruit that you'd normally expect from the Simcoe isn't particularly there. You get a little touch of it in the aftertaste. I'm getting a little bit of it now. You've seen how long it was since I took a sip of this beer. But the fruity side of things is leaning towards red fruit for me. There's a little bit of a peary, appley, kind of orchard type ester to this beer. There's a sort of figgy, sultani, datey kind of thing going on with this too. Maybe a little touch of an apricot note, but the fruity notes to this beer are very, very unusual. And as I said with this, if it came down to a blind tasting, I would not guess straight off that this is a New England IPA. I really wouldn't know what to make of this. To me, it strikes me as a little bit as a bit more of a kind of. It's not even a West Coast IPA. I would have no idea what style category this one would fit into, but it's most definitely not a New England IPA in the traditional sense, at least. If we're putting it into the New England style IPA, the thing that's wrong with it is how sweet the malt base is and how brown bready it is. The New England IPA should be a lot more wheaty, white bready, oaty than this beer is. This one's definitely just a little bit too sweet in a number of its characters to fit into that particular category. There's nothing wrong with the sort of fruity side of things. You can, if you used Enigma or some of the other hops, Williamette's another one that can give you blackberries and things like that. If you use these sort of hops in that beer, then you could certainly get flavours like this. But it's black currant. There's black currants in here. There's dates. There's figs. There's stuff like that. It's just a really unusual combination of flavours. I don't think I've come across a beer that has been kind of almost as confusing as this. So this is another one that's definitely posed a very interesting question for me. The main question would be, though, do I like it? And I have to say, the flavour combination works for me. It does work. Drinking a half litre of this is a little bit of a challenge, so I will share that. I share most of my beers with my girlfriend right enough, but this is one that I will be sharing with her. But the flavour combination on this works, but I would say to them, go and have a think about this and think what style you would want to put this in, because it's definitely not a New England IPA. I would be very adamant in that statement. But in terms of it being a beer that's drinkable, it is nice enough. There's nothing wrong with this beer. It just does not fit into the category that it's marketed under. I think that's a very kind of fair assessment of this beer. I like the fruity side of this beer, and I do like the sort of sweeter bready malt base that it has. It's almost a little bit like a very fruity amber. It could be like some kind of unusual American amber or something like that. That's maybe somewhere that it could find a home if we're categorising the beers. But it's definitely, it's a little confused, this beer, I think, as to what exactly it is, but the flavour combination does work, but not as a New England IPA. I think we should kind of draw the line under that one. This is not a New England IPA in the traditional sense. But yeah, it's there is a sort of graininess to this beer that pushes its way out as well. You can feel that just on your palate too. There is a graininess pushing its way out of this beer, but it really does work. The flavour combination of this beer, I think, does work, but it really is not a New England IPA in the traditional sense. You think about the ones that Amundsen, for example, are producing. This one's nowhere near that sort of flavour profile, actually. But in terms of the mouthfeel of this one, then, I would say it's a mid-bodied beer. The carbonation is very smooth. The mouthfeel overall is it's big and bready, but at the same time it's got a little bit of an oily quality to it. Nice little touch of hoppy bitterness, but I would say you're lucky if you're getting about 20 IBUs out of this one. It's maybe not even that. Good bit of juicy fruity quality. This one, some sweetness and smoothness in the malt base. As I say, the flavour combination in this beer works, but overall I would say this is quite it's a confused beer, but the flavour combination works. I don't really know how else to kind of summarise this one, but I'd be really curious, pardon me, to try some of the more traditional German styles of beer. I absolutely love my Dunkels and my Pilsners and Helles and Doppelbocks and things like that. I'd really like to try some of those from the original Mack Ølbryggeri range, but I would be open-minded to trying some of the other things from the Mack Microbrewery as well. But if you're wanting a kind of I don't know if it's right to say a traditional, like a normal New England IPA, then this isn't the beer to buy. This one has a flavour combination that works, but it's certainly not marketed under the right style, in my opinion. But it's one that makes me kind of curious. If they're putting beers like this out there, then maybe trying some of the other ones could also be a very interesting experience. But sometimes you come across beers like this that will throw you a little bit and make you think about styles, so you have to be open-minded about things like this. I think that's fair to say. But we'll leave it at that with this beer. This one is the Sex. And you should say that as well. Sex can be an unusual experience in some cases too. But yeah, and this beer certainly has been an unusual experience in the traditional sense. But yeah, an interesting review of this one, and I hope you've enjoyed it, even though I've rambled for most of this one. It hasn't been my most concise and kind of solid review, if you like, but I hope you've enjoyed watching me try to get my head around something that itself I think is a little bit confused. But hopefully I can try more beers from the Mack Ølbryggeri in the future, and I can try some from this kind of Mack Microbrewery range as well. But the flavour combination works, and it goes together pretty well, but definitely not marketed under the right style. So let's leave it at that for this one. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from the Mack traditional range and from the Mack Microbrewery range as well, and I'm sure I'll catch you guys very, very soon. I do hope that I can review the Norwegian beers for you a little bit more regularly over the next little while. Until the next time, Slàinte just now, and I will catch you guys very soon. Slàinte, skål, cheers.